welcome to today's video. Today we're going to be talking about the stats that the in-game tutorial doesn't tell you about the stats on your characters. I don't know about you, but when I first started looking, and even still now, I look at all these stats that they throw out at us, especially the ones at the very beginning, strength, agility, tactics, and I'm just like, what is that? What are these things? How are they related to my character? I've never understood them. So, luckily for me and us, I have a very good friend in the guild who I've known for several years at this point, who is very good at this kind of stuff. This is Emperor Kalpatine, and he will be joining us today. Cal, thanks for stopping by. Welcome to the channel.
Hey, I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to help out with teaching everybody about these numbers, because numbers are my game, and this game is numbers.
Before we start looking at a visual example of it, of these stats and how they impact our characters with an in-game example, we're going to first talk about the theory behind it, so that way when you see the visual, you'll have an understanding of what it is you're seeing. So Cal has made this really good Google Doc that talks about these stats and how they impact your character. His example is Dark Trooper, so we'll go through this with him and we'll learn, and then we'll apply it to a character that I've got in game. So, Cal, take it away.
Yeah, so primary stats are actually relatively simple. There's only 3 of them. You have strength, which affects total health and armor, agility, which affects your total physical crit chance and armor, and tactics, which affects your special damage and resistance. Each toon has a main primary stat, which will also increase their physical offense by 1.4, give or take. And each of these stats is also technically in the decimals. Although they give you a flat number on your character screen, each thing will increase by 5.5, 7.4, depending on the star level of the character, which we'll get into later. But the reason I chose Dark Trooper is because he's just star level 1 at unlock. And I leveled him up to level 2, and there is a point where I gave him piece of gear that gave him +1 to his strength, +1 to his agility, and +1 to his tactics. So we can get a pretty solid understanding of what each point actually gives you. So, for example, Dark Trooper's main primary stat is strength. So the way I know his main primary stat is strength is because when you go and look at their actual stats in game, you can see that strength is colored green. They don't really tell you that this is how you identify it, but that's the real simple key to it. But since his primary stat is strength, that means his physical offense will get improved by 1.4 each time you put a point into strength. In addition, his health went up by a total of 18 in between gear piece and no gear piece. His armor went from 21.1% to 25%, for a difference of 3.9%. And then jumping over to his agility, you see that his initial physical crit chance went from 10.25% to 10.29%, for a total of 0.04%. His armor went from 21.1% to 3.9%. It is important to note that strength has a higher effect on armor than your agility does, regardless of if it's your primary stat or your main primary stat or your non-main primary stat. The difference is literally double. So looking at the defense stat, which doesn't have a physical number, and we will talk about this later, it is 0.07 of a total point for defense if you get from agility, and from strength it is 0.14 of a stat. And then going to tactics, the initial special offense was 38, and it went up by 2, which is a negligible difference, but also consistent with the main primary stat. So for each point in tactics, it is give or take the same increase that you would get from your main primary stat, but it is consistent across all characters. And then your initial resistance was 6.3, and it stayed at 6.3, but because the number is so minuscule, there's just a chance that you will not see that difference until way later into leveling up a character, when you see your tactics go into the hundreds or maybe even the thousands, depending on the character. And the actual total number from resistance, the non-percentile one, is about 0.1 of a total point. So, 100 points of tactics would give you 10 special defense points.
All right. Well, that's all really insightful and definitely more than I knew before we started this. So these are starting stats, starting values for the character. So how does leveling up and starring up characters impact these statistics?
So when you go and look at a character's stats, you'll see that there is a strength growth, agility growth, tactics growth value. I think for the most part it's 1.3, going up to 1.8 on your main primary for a 1-star character. Each star changes your total growth rate. Using the example of a 7-star character that's not a galactic legend, your main primary stat typically goes up by like 7.4 as the growth level, and that growth level is how much you get from each character level. So you'll get 7.4, we'll use Dark Trooper as the example, you'll get 7.4 strength per level of Dark Trooper. So at level 85, you would get 7.4 times 85. So about 629 strength. And it doesn't do much past that except give those their direct effects to your toon.
So now that we have an understanding of our primary stats and how they work and what all they affect, now we can look at our secondary stats and we can see how they interplay with each other. So Cal, go and take it away on the secondary stats.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of stats that aren't affected by the primary stats, or really mods either. They're only affected by pieces of gear or buffs, such as health steal percentage. This one's real simple. It's just a flat percentage of the total damage you deal, you get back in health. Quick example of that is 25% health steal, you deal 10,000 damage, get back 2,500 health. Don't feel like that one's very hard. Then going on to defense penetration, there are 3 forms of percentage defense penetration. There's armor, resistance, and defense. Armor penetration ignores physical defense. Resistance penetration ignores special defense. And defense penetration ignores both. So, for example, if you had 10% defense penetration, 5% armor penetration, and 3% resistance penetration, you would ignore 15% of physical armor or 13% of special armor. Continuing on to accuracy, dodging, and deflection, moving on to the defensive side of things, every attack has a check to see if it hits, unless it can't be evaded. Accuracy, dodge, and deflection are what makes sure that you hit, or if the opponent dodges, or if you ever see deflect pop up every now and then, that's for special damage. There is a permanent 2% chance to evade, regardless of any modifiers of your character's accuracy. The only thing that removes that chance is if the attack cannot be invaded. Accuracy does cancel out the total percentage of dodge and deflect. So if you had, say, 15% accuracy and one of the opponent's toons had 10% dodge, you would cancel out 8% of their dodge chance, and they would still have that 2% to evade your attack. And the only difference between dodge and deflect is that dodge is what happens for physical attacks, and deflect is what happens for special attacks. That's it. Anything that improves evasion improves both dodge and deflect. It's just a different word for different damage types. And lastly, in the stats unaffected by mods, there's armor and resistance. Now, technically they are both affected by mods, but not these stats directly. Armor and resistance are both a percentage value that reduce the total damage of an attack. So say someone comes in with an attack that should deal about 10,000 damage, and you have 25% armor, it's only going to deal 7,500. There is a solid number for both of them. It's defense, and I have a little formula here to help calculate it. There's a special defense and a physical defense. And all you have to do is put in the armor percentage that you have for the character, multiply it by the character level multiplied by 7.5, and then divide that parentheses by 100 minus your armor percentage. And you will have your exact defense number for armor. And then just replace armor with resistance if you want to find your special defense value.
What's the importance?
I know doing math isn't something we all want to do, but if you're looking for how much defense value from a mod will improve something, it's important to know how you get there.
What's the importance of that 7.5? Like that's and the 100. They just seem like random numbers thrown in there.
So the 100 is for the actual percentage difference, and it's the way that CG has done it is so that you actually get diminishing returns from having a higher level character and from having higher armor. So as time goes on, each point of defense will affect your total damage reduction by less and less and less. And technically speaking, the tankiest character in the game would be a level 1 toon with 100 armor. They'd be invincible. But that's not how the game works in the end. It's just so that as time goes on, the scale doesn't go way overboard. I don't know why they chose 7.5 as their total number for the calculation, but it's the one we gotta work with.
So you said the 100 is a percent. Basically, it's the incoming damage, right? 100% of incoming damage minus character's armor stat?
Sort of.
Alright, so can I get my armor stat, like, high? Like, can I get a 100% armor stat? Or do you think the math works out so you'll never get that?
The way that it ends up is that if you ever have 100% armor, you're dividing by 0, and nothing happens.
Okay.
There will be a point where you have so much armor that nothing happens at all.
In theory, how easy do you think that is to actually achieve?
You would probably have to have a level 85 character with close to like 3,000 armor, which is nigh impossible. I don't think even Galactic Legends get anywhere close to that.
Alright, awesome. Thanks. Alright, so those are all the stats that aren't directly covered by a mod, or by modding. So now we're going to look at some of the ones that are directly related to when you're applying mods. And we're not going to cover all of them, because some of them are pretty obvious. We all understand how, crit chance and health and protection are related to mods. It's pretty much a one-to-one. We see this number on the mod, we see this number go up on our stats. The ones that are a little more elusive and have some behind-the-scenes shenanigans are the ones we're going to cover. We're going to talk about tenacity, potency, offense, and defense. And on that note, Cal, go and take it away with those.
Okay. Tenacity is the most annoying stat in the game. We've all been in that situation where you really need your daze or your shock or your stun to apply, and your opponent has tenacity down. But for some reason, it says resist. That's because there is a base 15% chance to resist a debuff unless it is unresistible. No matter what you do to reduce their tenacity or increase your potency, there is a 15% chance that it will get resisted. Other than that, tenacity is pretty cut and dry. It's a direct chance of being able to resist a debuff. So if you have 90% tenacity, you have a 90% chance to resist a debuff. If you have an Enfys Nest with 180% tenacity, you have a 180% chance to resist the debuff. But where that gets put in check is by potency. The chance to apply a debuff, but it is more reliant on your opponent's tenacity because it's a direct check. So the more potency you have, the more tenacity you cancel out. So it used to be that R2-D2 was the highest tenacity character in the game. You only needed like 31% potency to bring him down to that 15% base chance to resist. Now we have Galactic Legends, we have all these crazy relic characters that get tenacity boosts from their mastery. Like the Armorer, she ends up with like 87% tenacity just as a base stat. So you probably, if you're running a character that you need a debuff to apply, you probably want to be sitting somewhere around 80% to 85% potency in order to reduce their resist chance to that base 15. But no matter what you do, that base 15 exists. There will always be a 1 out of 10 chance that they're going to ignore the debuff that you need to apply. As for offense, it's just a straight damage increase. It's not 1-for-1 because of the way that attacks work in the game. Each one has a hidden damage variance range. Like, I'm sure we've all looked at Lando Calrissian's basic attack that says this attack has a high damage variance. I think fully upgraded it has a between 280% to 310% chance multiplier of your physical offense. But it is the general rule of thumb is that you want 1,000 points of offense will do about 15% more damage. It's not an exact relation, and this is a my number. It's what I see when I mod my characters with higher offense. So don't expect the same results or to see the exact same thing that I see. And then going to defense. Defense is armor and resistance. A mod that gives you 6 defense will improve your armor and resistance by 6, but not the percentage. It is the flat number that affects the percentage. And you have to go back to that calculation I gave you before in order to see how it relates more directly.
Alright, so that is our conversation about stats out of the way. So you'll see all those changes. You apply mods and level up and gear and stars, and that's all of that. But how does mastery fit into these stats, and how does relic levels fit into these stats? So we're going to talk about mastery now, how you can identify what is affected by your character's mastery, and all that fun stuff that goes along with relics and totally breaking the game with relics. So Cal, go ahead and take away with mastery.
So you remember how I told you that each toon has a main primary stat? Well, they also have a main role. I'm sure we've all seen, our ability match challenge. We have to have 5 tanks in order to be able to challenge it. So Each of those tanks has a different main primary stat. So Mace Windu is a strength tank. Dark Trooper is a strength attacker. Each one of them has different stats increased by their mastery. Mastery is a constant 0 until you hit Relic level 1. Not Gear 13, not Gear 12, Relic 1. Until you hit that point, there will be nothing you can do that improves that percent or that total mastery. But things can decrease your mastery before you have a mastery stat. The most obvious example I can think of would be Supreme Leader Kylo Ren, reducing your mastery if you gain bonus turn meter outside of your turn. He will reduce any character's mastery, regardless of whether they even have their mastery stat. So the reason that that's important to know is, for some reason, the way they coded it is that your mastery is locked at 0 until you hit Relic 1. So because it can't go above it, but they didn't put a minimum on it, so it can go below it. So Supreme Leader Kylo Ren could take someone's mastery all the way to the ground, 6 feet under. Like I'll say negative 300 mastery, which if you look at positive masteries, you can't get anywhere near that number normally. But some characters are affected differently by it. So, for example, I know I said Mace Windu was a strength tank. That means his armor, health, steal, and protection would be affected by mastery. So funny enough, his health would not reduce at all if his mastery got reduced before he was Relic level 1. If you want to see how each character is affected by their mastery, all you have to do is look at their role, which is attacker, tank, healer, support. It pops up in green right below their name in the top left corner of the character screen. And then their primary stat, which we told you how to look at earlier, you just click on stats and you'll see the green main primary stat for the character. There's a little chart here that we have that tells you exactly which stats are affected by it. There's more and less at the same time. You'll see other stats get improved by it, and then once you hit Relic 9, more stats are improved yet again, because compounding mastery at certain Relic levels also changes how they're affected. But that is so late game for most of us that it at that point, if you don't know what you're doing, I'm concerned. I do want to go ahead and give credit where it's due. A lot of the research that I got from this, I did get from gaming-fans.com. I also got it from the SWGOH forums. There are a ton of threads out there that go into mastery, including one from CG itself, which is where I got the image of how mastery is affected by your role and stat. But Gaming-Fans is a great resource on how you can find formulas to get more definitive answers on what your character's stats did.
Alright, I'll make sure to drop their link in the description down below the video in case you're interested in following up and exploring that on your own. Alright, so that's the heavy theory stuff out of the way. Now we'll take an actual look at it in game so you guys have a visual to go along with that. So we're going to take a look at Mara Jade, because I'm working on Starkiller right now. So if we take a look at just her character screen here, we see up here her role, like Cal pointed out, she is an attacker. And if we look at her stats, we see that she is an agility focus. So agility is her primary stat. And here we can see those growth values that he was talking about. So her agility is 1.8, which is noticeably higher than her strength and tactics growth of 1.3, playing right into the fact that she's an agility focused character. We see what her mastery is going to focus on. It'll increase her crit chance, crit damage, and overall damage. And then the rest of this is the stats that we've all seen before and are familiar with. So, there's all that. So we'll take a look. First, we must activate this character. So that was her flat. So we'll see how things change when she comes into existence, so to speak. This is a pretty good model.
You know, I've been impressed with the quality of their models. Did they do an update in the time that I was gone?
Oh yeah, while you were away, they did this whole spiel. It was around the time of, I think it was right before Galactic Legends or just after, or something like that. They talked about they're increasing the number of polygons in their models and stuff like that, and they're looking to, you know, they never said it out loud, but they're looking to rival Raid Shadow Legends and Marvel Strike Force, which they still fall short of, but this is a whole nother conversation. She's not a bad model to look at, though, if you catch my drift. But I've said this in some GA streams, I definitely think our best looking models now are Qui-Gon Jinn. I think Qui-Gon Jinn is the best looking model that we have in game.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
So, alright, so now we can see she's now 2 stars, so we see the differences that the star levels have made. Her agility has gone up, as has her growth stats. So she's now at 2.7 for N2 and 2. So, and like Hal said, her mastery is going to be locked until she gets to Relic 1. So, that's the 2 stars. So we'll go ahead and we'll tick her up a level now. Just 1. And now that we have the information, now this screen probably actually starts making sense, instead of just looking at it and being like, what? So, this is how much it increased by. So over here will be our how much our relevant stats went up. So now her agility, if I remember correctly, was like 25 or something like that. So now it should be like 28.
That sounds right.
So
and
there it is,
right.
Agility 28. So we'll go ahead and we'll level up again. So 2, 2, and 3. So which means she's now at agility 31. I don't know why I scrolled down. Yep. So again, these growth numbers here are what are being added, or what are factoring what's getting added to our actual stats up here. So
right.
Just for the kicks of it, we'll go ahead and finish maxing her up.
We'll see if she gets a couple 100 stat increases, so this number should be way bigger now. Before she had somewhere in the, 50 offense for her physical damage and 450 health.
Yeah, so now her agility is 252 versus 185-ish for strength and tactics. So...
And then suddenly she has 3,050 or 500 health, more than 8 times as much physical offense as she did before. So these stats compound very quickly between levels.
So now we'll look at how does a star promotion affects. So that modifier stat that is used to calculate changes per level has increased now. It went up by 0.7 for the non-primaries, 0.9 for the primary. So not that matters anymore. I'm not getting any more levels out of her. Although probably will be relevant for relicking, right?
So right now it actually is very relevant because it increased just about every stat by 50 points, give or take.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah, 50, 60. So she got an extra 1,000 health out the deal, and probably an extra 100 physical offense. Yep.
Cool. Good to know.
So your start level has an immediate impact on how well a character will perform just on a sheer stat basis, let alone the gear that you get access to at 7-star.
So if I'm starting a new character, like Mariah Jade here, should I prioritize stars or levels?
My personal philosophy is not to activate a character until you can take it to at least gear 10 at 7 stars. But the point I'm at in game, that's more I'm trying to stop my GP from doing weird things with my matchmaking.
Well, that's not how it is anymore.
For people just starting to unlock a character, especially one like Mara Jade, you want to prioritize level and gear, because she is more there for the buff she gives to other Empire characters.
All right.
But on a sheer stat basis, star will get you further.
All right. Do we have any individual gear pieces that we were talking about earlier that just improves agility?
Looks like speed.
Hey, you got
agility.
an agility one. And okay. So now we'll see how equipping a piece of gear impacts.
Right. So with that being her primary stat, the only thing you should see increase is your critical chance that's always associated with agility, your armor to a slight level, and to your physical offense.
Alright. I think
it looks like she got like 3 damage. But that's in line with I said that it's 1.4 physical offense per point of your main primary stat.
Alright. So, I don't think there's too much else to do. We've covered modding before in the past video, and now we should all understand how modding impacts both our obvious stats and our secondary and less obvious stats now, so we don't need to go over that. Is there a bonus between gear levels that we should take a look at while we're here?
So the only major thing to note on gear levels is that it lets you actually have your stats be affected by mods. So as you equip pieces of gear and have more and more mods on them,
Gee, thanks CG. That was
the mods will only affect the completed gear tiers that you've done. So you won't see an actual improvement in your mods, even if you put something that's like, plus 100 offense, and you have 3 mods that are plus 8.5% offense. You won't see that 100 offense get affected by those mods until you go up the next gear level.
So go up one more time?
I mean, that works right there, and it only really affects mods.
I noticed all the stats that popped up here right in the middle. Those just seem to be the individual ones being increased by the gear pieces.
Yes, that's all it is. It is a flat core stat improvement, because until you hit that actual gear level upgrade, it's an additional, not core improvement.
Okay. Alright.
So it is important to finish a gear level, instead of just wondering why you're not getting 24 offense after adding a piece of gear that gives you 100 offense.
Okay. Alright. Anything else that you think we need to cover for this?
No, man, I think we more or less got it. The stats are pretty cut and dry. There's a few hidden things here and there, but I think we covered them all.
Alright, guys. Thanks for stopping by. I hope you found this educational. Always a pleasure to make a video for you guys, and hope you guys find this helpful. And if you ever have any questions, of course, feel free to reach out in the general chat, message me. Um, Kyle, is it cool if they message you?
Yeah, it's fine. I love talking the numbers and I love talking this game. So please, if you have a question, let me know.
Yeah, so feel free to hit us up. We've got a lot of experience with the game and very fine understanding of it, so we're more than happy to help you guys out. Um, Thanks, guys. Thanks for stopping by. Have a good rest of your day. May the force be with you.